A half moon glowed on smooth granite boulders, turning them silver. The silence was broken only by the ripple of water from the swift black river and the whisper of trees in the forest beyond. There was a stirring in the shadows, and from all around lithe, dark shapes crept stealthily over the rocks. Unsheathed claws glinted in the moonlight, wary eyes flashed like amber, and then, as if on a silent signal, the creatures leaped at each other, and suddenly the rocks were alive with rustling, screeching cats. At the center of the frenzy of fur and claws, a massive dark tabby pinned a bracken-colored tom to the ground and drew up his head triumphantly. "Oakheart," the tabby growled, "how dare you hunt in our territory? The Sunning Rocks belong to ThunderClan." "After tonight, Tiger Claw, this will be just another RiverClan hunting ground," the bracken-colored tom spat back. A warning yell came from the shore, shrill and anxious. "Look out! More RiverClan warriors are coming!" Tiger Claw turned to see sleek, wet bodies sliding out of the water below the rocks. The drenched RiverClan warriors bounded silently up the shore and hurled themselves into battle without even stopping to shake the water from their fur. The dark tabby glared down at Oakheart. "You may swim like otters, but you and your warriors do not belong in this forest." He drew back his lips and showed his teeth as the cat struggled beneath him. The desperate scream of a ThunderClan she-cat rose above the clamor. A wary RiverClan tom had pinned the brown warrior flat on her belly. Now he lunged toward her neck, jaws still dripping from his swim across the river. Tiger Claw heard the cry and let go of Oakheart. With a mighty leap, he knocked the enemy warrior away from the she-cat. "Quick, Mousefur, run!" he ordered, before turning on the RiverClan tom, who had... Oh, shoot. Oh? Happy birthday. Mousefur scrambled to her paws, wincing from a deep gash on her shoulder, and raced away. Behind her, Tiger Claw spat with rage as the RiverClan tom sliced open his nose. Blood blinded him for an instant, but he lunged forward regardless and sank his teeth into the hind leg of his enemy. The RiverClan cat squealed and struggled free. "Tiger Claw!" The yell came from a warrior with a tail as red as fox fur. "This is useless. There are too many RiverClan warriors." "No, Redtail. ThunderClan will never be beaten." Tiger Claw yelled back, leaping to Redtail's side. "This is our territory." Blood was welling around his broad, black muzzle, and he shook his head impatiently, scattering scarlet drops onto the rocks. ThunderClan will honor your courage, Tiger Claw, but we cannot afford to lose any more of our warriors," Redtail urged. "Bluestar would never expect her warriors to fight against these impossible odds. We will have another chance to avenge this defeat." He met Tiger Claw's amber gaze steadily, then reared away and sprang onto a boulder at the edge of the trees. "Retreat, ThunderClan! Retreat!" he yelled. At once, his warriors squirmed and struggled away from their opponents. Spitting and snarling, they backed toward Redtail for a heartbeat. The RiverClan cats looked confused. Was this battle so easily won? Then Oakheart yowled a jubilant cry. As soon as they heard him, the RiverClan warriors raised their voices and joined their deputy in caterwauling their victory. Redtail looked down at his warriors, and with a flick of his tail, he gave the signal, and ThunderClan cats dived down the far side of Sunning Rocks and disappeared into the trees. Tiger Claw followed last. He hesitated at the side of the forest and glanced back at the blood-stained battlefield. His face was grim, his eyes furious slits. Then he leaped into the silent forest. In a deserted clearing, an old gray she-cat sat alone, staring up at the clear night sky. All around her, in the shadows, you could hear breathing and stirring of sleeping cats. A small tortoiseshell she-cat emerged from a dark corner, her paw steps quick and soundless. The gray she-cat dipped her head in greeting. "How is Mousefur?" she meowed. "Her wounds are deep, Bluestar," answered the tortoiseshell, settling herself on the night-cool grass. "But she is young. She will heal quickly." "And the others?" "They will all recover too." Bluestar sighed. We are lucky not to have lost any of our warriors this time. You are a gifted medicine cat, Spotted Leaf. She tilted her head again and studied the stars. I am deeply troubled by tonight's defeat. ThunderClan has not been beaten in its own territory since I became leader, she muttered. Oh. These are difficult times for our clans. The season of New Leaf is late. There have been fewer kits. ThunderClan needs more warriors if it is to survive. But the year is only just beginning, Spotted Leaf pointed out calmly. There will be more kits when Greenleaf comes. The gray cat twitched her broad shoulders. Perhaps, but training our young to become warriors takes time. If ThunderClan is to defend its territory, we must have new warriors as soon as possible. Are you asking StarClan for answers? Meowed Spotted Leaf gently, following Bluestar's gaze and staring up at the swath of stars glittering in the dark sky. It is at times like this we need words of ancient warriors to help us. Has StarClan spoken to you? Bluestar asked. Not for some moons, Bluestar. Suddenly, a shooting star blazed over the treetops. Spotted Leaf's tail twitched and the fur along her spine bristled. Bluestar's ears perked up, but she remained silent as Spotted Leaf continued to gaze upward. After a few moments, Spotted Leaf lowered her head and turned to Bluestar. It was a message from StarClan, she murmured. A distant look came into her eyes. Fire alone can save our clan. Fire? Bluestar echoed. But fire is feared by all the clans. How can it save us? Spotted Leaf shook her head. I do not know, she admitted. But this is the message StarClan has chosen to share with me. The ThunderClan leader fixed her clear blue eyes on the medicine cat. You have never been wrong before, Spotted Leaf, she meowed. If StarClan has spoken, then it must be so. Fire will save our clan. Chapter 1. It was very dark. Rusty could sense something was near. The young tomcat's eyes opened wide as he scanned the dense undergrowth. This place was unfamiliar, but the strange sense drew him onward and deeper into the shadows. His stomach growled, reminding him of his hunger. He opened his jaws slightly to let the warm smells of the forest reach the scent glands on the roof of his mouth. Musty odors of leaf mold mingled with the tempting aroma of a small furry creature. Suddenly, a flash of gray raced past him. Rusty stopped, still, listening. It was hiding in the leaves less than 2 tail lengths away. Rusty knew it was a mouse. He could feel the rapid pulsing of a tiny heart deep within his ear fur. He swallowed, stifling his rumbling stomach. Soon his hunger would be satisfied. Slowly, he lowered his body into position, crouching for the attack. He was downwind of the mouse. He knew it was not aware of him. With one final check on his prey's position, Rusty pushed back hard on his haunches and sprang, kicking up leaves in the forest floor as he rose. The mouse dived for cover, heading towards a hole in the door. Oh, oopsie-daisy. Heading for a hole in the ground. But Rusty was already on top of it. He scooped it into the air, hooking the helpless creature with his thorn-sharp claws, flinging it up in a high arc on the leaf-covered ground. The mouse landed dazed, but alive. It tried to run, but Rusty snatched it up again. He tossed the mouse once more, this time a little farther away. The mouse managed to scramble a few paces before Rusty caught up with it. Suddenly, a noise roared nearby. Rusty looked around, and as he did so, the mouse was able to pull away from his claws. When Rusty turned back, he saw it dart into the darkness among the tangled roots of a tree. Angry, Rusty gave up the hunt. He spun around, his green eyes glaring, intent on searching out the noise that had cost him his kill. The sound rattled on, becoming more familiar. Rusty blinked open his eyes. The forest had disappeared. He was inside a hot and airless kitchen, curled in his bed. Moonlight filtered through the window, casting shadows on the smooth, hard floor. The noise had been the rattle of hard, dried pellets of food as they were tipped into his dish. Rusty had been dreaming. Lifting his head, he rested his chin on the side of his bed. His collar rubbed uncomfortably around his neck. In his dreams, he had felt the fresh air ruffling the soft fur where the collar usually pinched. Rusty rolled onto his back, savoring the dream for a few more moments. He could smell the he could still smell mouse. It was the third time since the full moon he'd had that dream, and every time the mouse had escaped his grasp. He licked his lips. From his bed he could smell the bland odor of food. His owners always refilled his dish before they went to bed. The dusty smell chased away the warm sense of his dream, but the hunger rumbled on in his stomach. So Rusty stretched the sleep out of his limbs and padded across the kitchen floor to his dinner. The food felt dry and tasteless on his tongue. Rusty reluctantly swallowed one more mouthful, then turned away from the food dish and pushed his way out of the garden flap, hoping the smell of the garden would bring back the cat flap. My bad. The garden would bring back the feelings from his dreams. Outside, the moon was bright. It was raining lightly. Rusty stalked down the tidy garden, following the starlit gravel path, feeling the stones cold and sharp beneath his paws. He made his dirt beneath a large bush with glossy green leaves and heavy purple flowers. Their sickly scent cloyed the damp air around him, and he curled his lip to drive the smell out of his nostrils. Afterward, Rusty settled down on top of one of the posts in the fence that marked the limits of his garden. It was a favorite spot of his, as he could see right into the neighboring gardens as well into the dense green forest on the other side of the garden fence. The rain had stopped. Behind him, the close-cropped lawn was bathed in moonlight, but beyond his fence the woods were full of shadows. Rusty stretched his head forward to take a sniff of the damp air. His skin was warm and dry under his thick coat. He could feel the weight of the raindrops that sparkled on his ginger fur. He heard his owners giving him one last call from the back door. If he went with them now, they would greet him with gentle words and caresses and welcome him onto their bed, where he would curl up, purring in the warm crook of a bent knee. But this time, Rusty ignored his owners' voices and turned his gaze back to the forest. The crisp smell of the woods had grown fresher after the rain. Suddenly, the fur on his spine prickled. Was something out there? Was something watching him? Rusty stared ahead, but it was impossible to see or smell anything in the dark, tree-scented air. He lifted his chin boldly and stood up, stretched one paw, gripping each corner of the fence post as he straightened his legs and arched his back. He closed his eyes and breathed in the smell of the woods once more. It seemed to promise him something, tempting him onward into the whispering shadows, tensing his muscles. He crouched for a moment, and then he leaped lightly onto the rough grass on the other side of the garden fence. As he landed, the bell on his collar rang out through the still night air. "Where are you off to, Rusty?" meowed a familiar voice behind him. Rusty looked up. A young black and white cat was balancing ungracefully on the fence. "Hello, Smudge," Rusty replied. "You're not going in the woods, are you?" Smudge's amber eyes were huge. "Just for a look," Rusty promised, shifting uncomfortably. "You wouldn't get me in there. It's dangerous." Smudge wrinkled his black nose with distaste. "Henry said he went in the woods once." The cat lifted his head and gestured with his nose over the rows and rows of fences towards the garden where Henry lived. "That fat old tabby never went in the woods," Rusty scoffed. "He's hardly been beyond his own garden fence since his trip to the vet. All he wants to do is eat and sleep." "No, really, he caught a robin there," Smudge insisted. "Well, if he did, it was before the vet. Now he complains about the birds because they disturb his dozing." "Well, anyway," Smudge went on, ignoring the scorn in Rusty's mew, "Henry told me there are all sorts of dangerous animals out there. Huge wildcats who eat live rabbits for breakfast and sharpen their claws on old bones." "I'm only going for a look around," Rusty meowed. "I won't stay long." "Well, don't say I didn't warn you," purred Smudge. The black and white cat turned and plunged off the fence back down to his own garden. Rusty sat down in the coarse grass beyond the garden fence. He gave his shoulder a nervous lick and wondered how much of Smudge's gossip was true. Suddenly, the movement of a tiny creature caught his eye. He watched it scuttle under some brambles. Instinct made him drop into a low crouch. With one slow paw after another, he drew his body forward through the undergrowth. Ears pricked, nostrils flared, eyes unblinking. He moved toward the animal. He could see it clearly now, sitting up among the barbed branches, nibbling on a large seed held between its paws. It was a mouse. Rusty rocked his haunches from side to side, preparing to leap. He held his breath in case his bell rang again. Excitement coursed through him, making his heart pound. This was even better than his dreams. Then a sudden noise of cracking twigs and crunching leaves made him jump. His bell jangled treacherously, and the mouse darted away into the thickest tangle of the bramble bush. Hi there. Rusty stood very still and looked around. He could see the white tip of a red bushy tail trailing through a clump of tall ferns up ahead. He smelled the strong, strange scent, definitely a meat-eater, but neither cat nor dog. Distracted, Rusty forgot about the mouse and just watched the red tail curiously. He wanted a better look. All of Rusty's senses strained ahead as he prowled forward. Then he detected another noise. It came from behind, but it sounded muted and distant. He swiveled his ears backward to hear it better. Paw steps? He wondered, but kept his eyes fixed on the strange red fur up ahead, and continued to creep onward. It was only when the faint rustling behind him became a loud and fast-approaching leaf crackle that Rusty realized he was in danger. The creature hit him like an explosion, and Rusty was thrown sideways into a clump of nettles. Twisting and yowling, he tried to throw off the attacker that had fastened itself to his back. It was gripping him with incredibly sharp claws. Rusty could feel its spiked teeth pricking at his neck. He writhed and squirmed from whisker to tail, but he couldn't free himself. For a second, he felt helpless. Then he froze. Thinking fast, he flipped onto his back. He knew instinctively how dangerous it was to expose his soft belly, but he knew it was his only chance. He was lucky the ploy seemed to work, and he heard a loud huff beneath him as the breath was knocked out of his attacker. Thrashing furiously, Rusty managed to wriggle free. Without looking back, he sprinted towards his home. Behind him, a rush of paw steps told Rusty his attacker was giving chase. Even though the pain from his scratches stung beneath his fur, Rusty decided he would rather turn and fight than to let himself get jumped on again. He skidded to a stop, spun around, and faced his pursuer. It was another kitten, with a thick coat of shaggy gray fur, strong legs, and a broad face. In a heartbeat, Rusty smelled that it was a tom, and sensed the power in the sturdy shoulders underneath the soft coat. Then the kitten crashed into Rusty at full pelt. Taken by surprise by Rusty's turnabout, it fell back into a dazed heap. The impact knocked the breath out of Rusty, and he staggered. He quickly found his footing and arched his back, puffing out his orange fur, ready to spring on the other kitten. But his attacker simply sat up and began to lick a forepaw, all signs of aggression gone. Rusty felt strangely disappointed. Every part of him was tense, ready for battle.
"Hi there, kitty pet,"
yelled the gray tom cheerily.
"You put up quite a fight for a tame kitty."
Rusty remained on tiptoe for a second, wondering whether to attack anyway. Then he remembered the strength he had felt in the kitten's paws when he had pinned him to the ground. He dropped onto his pads, loosened his muscles, and let his spine unbend.
"And I'll fight you again if I have to," he growled. "I'm Graypaw, by the way," the kitten went on, ignoring Rusty's threat. "I'm training to be a ThunderClan warrior."
Rusty remained silent. He didn't understand what this gray what's-it was meowing about, but he sensed the threat had passed. He hid his confusion by leaning down to lick his ruffled chest.
"What's a kitty pet like you doing out in the woods? Don't you know it's dangerous?"
asked Graypaw. "If you're the most dangerous things the woods has to offer, I think I can handle it," Rusty bluffed. Graypaw looked up at him for a moment, narrowing his big yellow eyes.
"Oh, I'm far from the most dangerous. If I were even half the warrior, I would have given an intruder like you some real wounds to think about."
Rusty felt a thrill of fear at these ominous words. What did this cat mean by intruder?
"Anyway,"
meowed Graypaw, using his sharp teeth to tug at a clump of grass between his paws,
"I didn't think it was worth hurting you. You're obviously not from one of the other clans."
"Other clans?" Rusty echoed, confused. Graypaw let out an impatient hiss.
"You must have heard about the 4 warrior clans that hunt around here. I belong to ThunderClan. The other clan, they're always trying to steal prey from our territory, especially Shadow Clan. They're so fierce, they would have ripped you to shreds, no questions asked. Greypaw paused to spit angrily and continued. They come to take prey that's rightfully ours, and it's the job of the Thunder Clan warriors to keep them out of our territory. When I finish my training, I'll be so dangerous, I'll have the other clans shaking in their flea-bitten skins. They won't dare come near us then. Rusty narrowed his eyes. This must be one of the wildcats Smudge had warned him about. Living rough in the woods, hunting and fighting each other for every last scrap of food. Yet, Rusty didn't feel scared. In fact, it was hard not to admire this confident kitten. So you're not a warrior yet? He asked. Why? Did you think I was? Greypaw purred proudly. Then he shook his wide, furry head. I won't be a real warrior for ages. I have to go through the training first. Kids have to be 6 months old before they can even begin training. Tonight's my first night out as an apprentice. Why don't you find yourself an owner with a nice, cozy house instead? Your life would be much easier, Rusty meowed. There are plenty of house folk who'd take in a kitten like you. All you have to do is sit where they can see you and look hungry for a couple of days. And they'd feed me pellets that look like rabbit droppings and soft slop, Greypaw interrupted. No way! I can't think of anything worse than being a kitty pet. They're nothing but two-leg toys, eating stuff that doesn't look like food, making dirt in a box of gravel, sticking their noses outside only when the 2 legs allow them. That's no life. Out here it's wild and it's free. We come and go as we please. He finished his speech with a proud spit, then meowed mischievously. Until you've tasted a fresh-killed mouse, you haven't lived. Have you ever tasted mouse? No, Rusty admitted a little defensively. Not yet. I guess you'll never understand, Greypaw sighed. You weren't born wild. It makes a big difference. You have to be born with warrior blood in your veins, or feel the wind in your whiskers. Kitty pets born in a 2-leg nest could never feel the same way. Rusty remembered the way he had felt in his dream. That's not true, he meowed indignantly. Greypaw did not reply. He suddenly stiffened mid-lick, one paw still raised, and sniffed the air. I smell cats from my clan, he hissed. You should go. They won't be pleased to find you hunting in our territory. Rusty looked around, wondering how Greypaw knew any cat was approaching. He couldn't smell anything different on the leaf-scented breeze. Hi. But his first one ended the note of urgency in Greypaw's voice. Quick! Hissed Greypaw again. Run! Rusty prepared to spring into the bushes, not knowing which way was safe to jump. He was too late. What's going on here? Rusty turned to see a large gray she-cat strolling majestically out from the undergrowth. She was magnificent. White hair streaked her muzzle, and an ugly scar parted the fur across her shoulders, but her smooth gray coat shone like silver in the moonlight. Hola. Blue Star! Beside Rusty, Greypaw crouched down and narrowed his eyes. He crouched even lower when a second cat, a handsome golden tabby, followed the gray cat into the clearing. You shouldn't be so near 2-leg place, Greypaw, growled the golden tabby angrily as he narrowing his green eyes. I know, Lionheart, I'm sorry. Greypaw looked down at his paws. Rusty copied Greypaw and crouched low to the forest floor, his ears twitching nervously. These cats had an air of strength he had never seen in any of his garden friends. Maybe what Smudge had warned him about was true. Who is this? Asked the she-cat. Rusty flinched as she turned her gaze on him. Her piercing blue eyes made him feel even more vulnerable. He's no threat, mewed Greypaw quickly. He's not another warrior, just a 2-leg pet from beyond our territories. Just a 2-leg pet? The words inflamed Rusty, but he held his tongue. The warning look in Blue Star's stare told him that she had observed the anger in his eyes, and he looked away. This is Blue Star. She's the leader of my clan, Greypaw hissed to Rusty under his breath. And Lionheart? He's my mentor, which means he's training me to be a warrior.
Thank you for the introduction, Grey Paw, meowed Lionheart coolly. Blue Star was staring at Rusty. You fight well for a two-legged pet, she meowed. Rusty and Grey Paw exchanged confused glances. How did she know? We've been watching you both, Blue Star went on, as if she had read their thoughts. We wondered how you would deal with an intruder, Grey Paw. You attacked him bravely. Thank you. Grey Paw looked pleased at Blue Star's praise. Sit up now, both of you. Blue Star looked at Rusty. You too, kitty pet. He sat up immediately and held Blue Star's gaze evenly as she addressed him. You reacted to the attack well, kitty pet. Grey Paw is stronger than you, but you used your wits to defend yourself. And you turned to face him when he chased you. I've not seen a kitty pet do that before. Rusty managed to nod his thanks, taken aback by such unexpected praise. Her next words surprised him even more. I've been wondering how you'd perform out here beyond the two-leg place. We patrol this border frequently, so I've often seen you sitting on your boundary, staring into the forest. And now at last, you have dared place your paws here. Blue Star stared at Rusty thoughtfully. You do seem to have a natural hunting ability. Sharp eyes. You would have caught that mouse if you had not hesitated so long. Really? Rusty stammered. Lionheart spoke now. His deep meow was respectful but insistent. Blue Star, this is a kitty pet. He should not be hunting in ThunderClan territory. Send him home to his two legs. Rusty prickled at Lionheart's dismissive words. Oh, sweet. Send me home, he meowed impatiently. Blue Star's words had made him glow with pride. She had noticed him. She had been impressed by him. But I've only come here to hunt for a mouse or two. I'm sure there's enough to go around. Blue Star had turned her head to acknowledge Lionheart's words, but now her gaze snapped back to Rusty. Her blue eyes were blazing with anger. There's never enough to go around, she spat. If you didn't live such a soft, overfed life, you would know that. Rusty was confused by Blue Star's sudden rage, but one glance at the horrified look on Grey Paw's face was enough to tell him he had spoken too freely. Lionheart had stepped to his leader's side. Both warriors loomed over him now. Rusty looked into Blue Star's threatening stare, and his pride dissolved. These were not cozy fireside cats he was dealing with. They were mean, hungry cats, who were probably going to finish what Grey Paw started. One second. What do you want, Haribo? Hi. My cat says hi. Okay. Oh, thanks. Chapter 2. Well? Hissed Blue Star. Her face only a mouth length away from his now. Lionheart remained silent as he towered over Rusty. He flattened his ears and crouched under the Golden Warrior's stare. His fur prickled uncomfortably. I'm no threat to your clan, he meowed, looking down at his trembling paws. You threaten our clan when you take our food, yelled Blue Star. You have plenty of food in your two-leg nests already. You come here to hunt for sport, but we hunt to survive. The truth of the warrior queen's words pierced Rusty like a blackthorn, and suddenly he understood her anger. He stopped trembling, sat up, and straightened his ears. He raised his eyes to meet hers. I had not thought about it that way before. I'm sorry, he meowed solemnly. I will not hunt here again. Bluestar let her hackles fall and signaled to Lionheart to step back. "You're an unusual kitty pet, Rusty," she meowed. Graypaw's sigh of relief made Rusty's ears twitch. He had heard the approval in Bluestar's voice and had noticed she swapped a meaningful glance with Lionheart. The look made him curious. What had flashed between the two warriors? Quietly, he asked, "Is survival here really that hard?" "Our territory only covers part of the forest," answers Bluestar. "We compete with the other clans for what we have, and this year, late New Leaf means prey is scarce." "Is your clan very big?" Rusty meowed, his eyes wide. "Big enough," replied Bluestar. "Our territory can support us, but there is no prey left over." "Are you all warriors, then?" Rusty meowed. Bluestar's guarded answers were only making him more and more curious. "Some are warriors. Some are too young or too old or too busy caring for kits to hunt." Oh, oops, that's Lionheart. Some are warriors. Some are young. Some are too young or too old or too busy caring for kits to hunt." "And you all live and share prey together?" Rusty muttered in awe, thinking a little guiltily of his own easy, selfish life. Bluestar looked again at Lionheart. The golden tabby stared back at her steadily. At last she returned her gaze to Rusty and meowed, "Perhaps you should find these things out for yourself. Would you like to join ThunderClan?" "Hi." Rusty was so surprised he couldn't speak. Bluestar went on, "If you did, you would train with Graypaw to become a clan warrior." "But kitty pets can't be warriors," Graypaw blurted out. "They don't have warrior blood." A sad look clouded Bluestar's eyes. "Warrior blood," she echoed with a sigh. Too much of that had been spilled lately. Bluestar fell silent, and Lionheart meowed. "Bluestar is only offering you training, young kid. There is no guarantee you'd become a full warrior. It might prove too difficult for you. After all, you are used to a comfortable life." Rusty was stung by Lionheart's words. He swung his head around to face the golden tabby. "Why offer me the chance, then?" But it was Bluestar who answered. You were right to question our motives, young one. The fact is, ThunderClan needs more warriors." "Understand that Bluestar does not make this offer lightly," warned Lionheart. "If you wish to train with us, we will have to take you into our clan. You must either live with us and respect our ways, or return to Two-Leg Place and never come back. You cannot live with a paw in each world." A cool breeze stirred the undergrowth, ruffling Rusty's fur. He shivered, not with the cold, but with excitement at the incredible possibilities opening up in front of him. "Are you wondering if it's worth giving up your comfortable kitty pet life?" asked Bluestar gently. "But do you realize the price you will pay for warmth and food?" Rusty looked at her puzzled. Surely his encounter with these cats had proved to him just how luxurious his life was. "I can tell that you're still at home," Bluestar added, "despite the two-leg stench that clings to your fur." "What do you mean, still at home?" "You haven't been taken to the Two Legs to see the cutter," meowed Bluestar gravely. "You'd be very different then. Not quite so keen to fight a clan cat, I suspect." Rusty was confused. He suddenly thought of Henry, who had become fat and lazy since his last visit to the vet. Was that what Bluestar meant by the cutter? "The clan may not be able to offer you such easy food or warmth," continued Bluestar, but in the season of leaf bare, nights in the forest can be cruel. The clan will demand great loyalty and hard work. You will be expected to protect the clan with your life if necessary. There are many mouths to feed, but the reward is great. You will remain at home. You'll be trained in the ways of the wild. You will learn what it's like to be a real cat. The strength and the fellowship of the clan will always be with you, even when you hunt alone." Rusty's head reeled. Bluestar seemed to be offering him a life he had lived so many times and so tantalizingly in his dreams. But could he live like that for real? Lionheart interrupted his thought. "Come, Bluestar. We must not waste any more time here. We must get ready to join the other patrol at Moon High. Tigerclaw will wonder what has become of us." He stood up and flicked his tail expectantly. "Wait," Rusty meowed. "Can I think about your offer?" Blue Star looked at him for a long moment and then nodded. "Lionheart will be here tomorrow at sun high," she told him. "Give him your answer then." Blue Star murmured a low signal, and then, in a single movement, the three cats turned and disappeared into the undergrowth. Rusty blinked. He stared excitedly, uncertain, up past the ferns that encircled him, through the canopy of leaves to the stars that glittered in the clear sky. The scent of cats still hung heavy in the evening air, and as Rusty turned and headed for home, he felt a strange sensation inside him, tugging deliciously in the light wind. Oh. And the rustling leaves seemed to whisper his name in the shadows. What the frick? Chapter 3. That morning, as Rusty slept off his night's wanderings, the mouse dream came again, even more vivid than before. Free of his collar beneath the moon, he stalked the timid creature. But this time, he was aware of being watched. Shining from the shadows of the forest, he saw dozens of yellow eyes. The clan cats had entered his dream world. Rusty woke, blinking in the bright sunshine that was streaming across the kitchen floor. He felt his fur heavy and thick with warmth. His food bowl had been topped up and his water bowl rinsed out and filled with the bitter-tasting two-leg water. Rusty preferred drinking from puddles outside, but when it was hot or he was very thirsty, he had to admit it was easier to lap up the water indoors. Could he really abandon this comfortable life? He ate and then pushed his way out of the cat flap into the garden. The day promised to be warm, and the garden was heavy with the smell of early blossoms. "Hello, Rusty!" meowed a voice from the fence. It was Smudge. "You really should have been awake an hour ago. The baby sparrows were out stretching their wings." "Did you catch any?" Rusty asked. Smudge yawned and licked his nose. "Couldn't be bothered. I already ate enough at home. Anyway, why weren't you out earlier? Yesterday you were complaining about Henry sleeping his time away, and today you're not much better yourself." Rusty sat down on the cool earth beside the fence and curled his tail neatly over his front paws. "I was in the woods last night," he reminded his friend. At once he felt the blood stir in his veins and his fur stiffen. Smudge looked down at him, his eyes wide. "Oh yeah, I forgot. How was it? Did you catch anything? Or did anything catch you?" Rusty paused, not sure how to tell his old friend what had happened. "I met some wildcats," he began. "What?" Smudge was clearly shocked. "Did you get into a fight?" "Sorta." Rusty could feel the energy surging through his body as he recalled the strength and power of the clan cats. "Were you hurt? What happened?" Smudge prompted him eagerly. "There were 3 of them, bigger and stronger than any of us." "And you fought all 3 of them?" Smudge interrupted, his tail twitching with excitement. "No," Rusty mewed hastily. "Just the youngest one. The 2 others came later." "How come they didn't shred you to pieces?" "They just wanted me to leave the territory. But then..." Rusty hesitated. "What?" Smudge meowed impatiently. "Then they asked me to join their clan." Smudge's whiskers quivered disbelievingly. "They did," Rusty insisted. "Why would they do that?" "I don't know," Rusty admitted, "but I think they need extra paws in their clan." "Sounds a bit odd to me," Smudge mewed doubtfully. "I wouldn't trust them if I were you." Rusty looked at Smudge. His black and white friend had never shown any interest in venturing into the woods. He was perfectly content living with his housefolk. He would never understand the restless longing that Rusty's dreams stirred in him night after night. "But I do trust them," Rusty purred softly, "and I've made up my mind. I'm going to join them." Smudge scrambled down from the fence and stood in front of Rusty. "Please don't go, Rusty," he mewed in alarm. "I might never see you again." Rusty nudged him affectionately with his head. "Don't worry, my housefolk will get another cat.
You'll get on with him fine. You get along with everyone." "But it won't be the same," Smudge wailed. Rusty twitched his tail impatiently. "That's just the point. If I stay around here until they take me to the cutter, I won't be the same either." Smudge looked puzzled. "The cutter?" he echoed. "The vet," Rusty explained. "To be altered like Henry was." Smudge shrugged and stared down at his paws. Henry's all right," he mumbled. "I mean, I know he's a bit lazier now, but he's not unhappy. We could still have fun." Rusty felt his heart fill with sadness at the thought of leaving his friend. "I'm sorry, Smudge. I'll miss you too, but I have to go." Smudge didn't reply, but stepped forward and gently touched Rusty's nose with his own. "Fair enough. I can see I can't stop you, but at least let's spend one more morning together." Rusty found himself enjoying the morning even more than usual, visiting old haunts with Smudge, sharing words with the cats he had grown up with. Every one of his senses felt supercharged, as if he were poised before a huge jump. As Sunhigh approached, Rusty grew more and more impatient to see if Lionheart would really be waiting for him. The idle buzz of meows from his old friends seemed to fade into the background as all his senses strained towards the woods. Rusty jumped down from his garden fence for the last time and crept into the woods. He had said his goodbyes to Smudge. Now all his thoughts were focused on the forest and the cats who lived in it. As he approached the spot where he had met with the clan cats the night before, he sat down and tasted the air. Tall trees shielded the ground from the midday sunshine, making it comfortably cool. Here and there a patch of sunlight shone through a gap in the leaves and lit up the forest floor. Rusty could smell the same cat scent as last night, but he had no idea whether it was old or new. He lifted his head and sniffed uncertainly. "You have a lot to learn," meowed a deep voice. "Even the tiniest clan kit knows when there's another cat nearby." Rusty saw a pair of green eyes glinting from beneath the bramble bush. Now he recognized the scent. It was Lionheart. "Can you tell if I'm alone?" asked the golden tabby, stepping into the light. Hastily, Rusty sniffed again. The scents of Blue Star and Gray Paw were still there, but not as strong as the previous night. Hesitantly, he meowed. "Blue Star and Gray Paw aren't with you this time." "That's right," meowed Lionheart, "but someone else is." Rusty stiffened as a second clan cat strode into the clearing. "This is Whitestorm," purred Lionheart, "one of ThunderClan's senior warriors. Rusty looked at the Tom and felt his spine tingle with cold fear. Was this a trap? Long-bodied and muscular, Whitestorm stood in front of Rusty and gazed down at him. His white coat was thick and unmarked, and his eyes were yellow, where the yellow is sun-baked sand. Rusty flattened his ears warily and tensed his muscles in preparation for a fight. "Relax before your fear scent brings unwanted attention," growled Lionheart. "We are here only to take you to our camp." Rusty sat very still, hardly daring to breathe as Whitestorm stretched his nose forward and gave him a curious sniff. "Hello, young one," murmured the white cat. "I heard a lot about you." Rusty dipped his head in greeting. "Come, we can speak more when we're at the camp," ordered Lionheart, and without pausing, he and Whitestorm leaped away into the undergrowth. Rusty jumped to his paws and followed as quickly as he could. The two warriors made no allowance for Rusty as they sped through the forest, and before long he was struggling to keep up. Their pace barely slowed as they led him over fallen trees that they cleared in a single leap, but which Rusty had to scramble over paw by paw. They passed through sharply fragrant pine trees where they had to jump across steep gullies churned up by a two-legged tree eater. From the safety of his garden fence, Rusty had often heard it roaring and snarling in the distance. One gully was too wide to jump, half filled with slimy, foul-smelling water. The clan cats waded through it without hesitation. Rusty had never put a paw in water before, but
He was determined not to show any signs of weakness, so he narrowed his eyes and followed, trying to ignore the uncomfortable wetness that soaked his belly fur. At last, Lionheart and Whitestorm paused. Rusty skidded to a halt behind them and stood panting while the two warriors stepped onto a rock that rested on the edge of a small ravine. "We are very close to camp now," yelled Lionheart. Rusty strained to see any signs of life, moving leaves, a glimpse of fur among the bushes below, but his eyes saw nothing except for the same undergrowth that covered the rest of the forest floor. "Use your nose, you must be able to scent it," hissed Whitestorm impatiently. Rusty closed his eyes and sniffed. Sniffed. Whitestorm was right. The scents here were very different from the cat scent he was used to. The air smelled stronger, speaking of many more cats. Many different cats. He nodded thoughtfully and announced, "I can smell cats." Lionheart and Whitestorm exchanged amused looks. "There will come a time, if you are accepted into the clan, when you will know each cat scent by name." Lionheart meowed. "Follow me." He led the way nimbly down. Oh, cool. I'm on... I'll tell you after I finish the chapter. He led the way nimbly down the boulders to the bottom of the ravine and pushed his way through the thick patch of gorse. Rusty followed, and Whitestorm took up the rear. As his side scraped against the prickly gorse, Rusty looked down and noticed that the grass beneath his paws was flattened into a broad, strong-smelling track. This must be the main entrance into camp, he thought. Beyond the gorse, the clearing opened up. The ground at the center was bare, hard earth, shaped by many generations of paw steps. This camp had been here a long time. The clearing was dappled by sunshine, and the air felt warm and still. Rusty looked around, his eyes wide. There were cats everywhere, sitting alone or in groups, sharing food and purring quietly as they groomed one another. Just after sun-high, when the day is hottest, is the time for sharing tongues, Lionheart explained. "Sharing tongues?" Rusty echoed. "Clan cats always spend their time grooming each other, and sharing the news of the day," Whitestorm told him. "We call it sharing tongues. It is a custom that binds the members of our clan together." The cats had obviously smelled Rusty's foreign scent, for heads began to turn and stare curiously in his direction. Suddenly shy of meeting any cat's gaze directly, Rusty looked around the clearing. It was edged with thick grass, dotted with tree stumps and a fallen tree. A thick curtain of fern and gorse shielded the camp from the rest of the woods. "Over there," meowed Lionheart, flicking his tail towards an impenetrable looking tangle of brambles, "is the nursery, where the kits are cared for." Rusty swiveled his ears toward the bushes. He could see through the knot of prickly branches, and he could not see through the I'm tired. He could not see through the knot of He couldn't see through the knot of prickly branches, but he could hear the mewing of several kittens from somewhere inside. As he watched, a ginger she-cat squirmed out through the gap in the front. That must be one of the queens, Rusty thought. A tabby queen with distinctive black markings appeared around the bramble bush. The two she-cats exchanged a friendly lick between the ears. Before the tabby slipped inside the nursery, murmuring to the squealing kittens. "The care of kits is shared by all the queens," meowed Lionheart. "All cats serve the clan. Loyalty to the clan is the first law of our warrior code. A lesson you must learn quickly if you are to stay with us." "Here comes Blue Star," meowed Whitestorm, sniffing the air. Rusty sniffed the air too, and was pleased that he was able to recognize The scent of the gray she-cat, a moment before she appeared from the shadow of a large boulder that lay beside them at the head of the clearing. He came, Bluestar purred, addressing the warriors. Whitestorm replied. Lionheart was convinced he would not. He would not. Rusty noticed the tip of Bluestar's tail twitch impatiently. Well, what do you think of him? She asked. He kept up well on the return journey, despite his puny size, Whitestorm admitted. He certainly seems strong for a kitty pet. Sorry the voices keep changing. I'm a little indecisive. So it is agreed. Bluestar looked at Lionheart and Whitestorm. Both cats nodded. Then I shall announce his arrival to the clan. Bluestar leaped up on the boulders and yelled, Let all those cats old enough to catch their own prey join here beneath the high rock for a clan meeting. Her clear call brought all the cats trotting towards her, emerging like liquid shadows from the edges of the clearing. Rusty stayed where he was, flanked by Lionheart and Whitestorm. The other cats settled themselves below High Rock and looked up expectantly at their leader. Rusty felt a rush of relief as he recognized Graypaw's thick gray fur among the cats. Beside him, a young tortoiseshell queen, her black tipped tail tucked neatly over small white paws. A large dark gray tabby crouched behind them, the black stripes on his fur looking like shadows on the moonlit floor. When the cats were silent, Bluestar spoke. ThunderClan needs more warriors, she began. Never before have we had so few apprentices in training. It has been decided that ThunderClan will take in an outsider to train as a warrior. Rusty heard indignant mutterings erupt among the clan cats, but Bluestar silenced them with a firm yowl. I have found a cat who's willing to become an apprentice of ThunderClan. Lucky to become an apprentice, caterwauled a loud voice above the ripple of shock spread through the cats. Rusty craned his neck and saw a pale tabby cat standing up and glaring defiantly at the leader. Bluestar ignored the tabby and addressed all of her clan. Lionheart and Whitestorm have met this young cat, and they agree with me that they should train him without the other apprentices. Rusty looked up at Lionheart, then back at the clan, to find all eyes were on him now. His fur prickled and he swallowed nervously. There was silence for a moment. Rusty was sure they must all be able to hear his heart pulsing and smell his fierce scent. Now a deafening crescendo of caterwauls rose up from the crowd. Where does he come from? What clan does he belong to? What a strange scent he carries. That's not the scent of any clan I know. Then one yowl in particular sounded above the rest. Look at his collar. He's a kitty pet. It was the pale tabby again. Once a kitty pet, always a kitty pet. This clan needs wild-born warriors to defend it, not another soft mouth to feed. Lionheart bent down and hissed into Rusty's ear. That tabby is Longtail. He smells your fear. They all do. You must prove to him and the other cats that your fear won't hold you back. But Rusty couldn't move. How could he ever prove to these fierce cats that he wasn't just a kitty pet? The tabby continued to jeer at him. Your collar is a mark of the two legs, and that noisy jingling will make you a poor hunter at best. At worst, it'll bring the two legs into our territory, looking for the poor lost kitty pet who fills the woods with his pitiful tinkling. All the cats howled in agreement. Longtail went on, well aware that he had the support of his audience. The noise of your treacherous bell will alert all our enemies, even if your two-legged stench doesn't. Lionheart hissed into Rusty's ear once more. Do you back down from a challenge? Rusty still did not move, but this time he was trying to pinpoint Longtail's position. There he was, just behind a dusky brown queen. Rusty flattened his ears, narrowed his eyes, and hissing, leaped through the air. Leaped through the startled cats to fling himself onto his tormentor. Longtail was completely unprepared for Rusty's attack. He staggered sideways, losing his footing on the hard-baked earth. Filled with rage, desperate to prove himself, Rusty dug his claws deep into the tabby cat's fur and sank in his teeth. No subtle rituals of swiping and boxing preceded this fight. The two cats were locked in a screaming, writhing tussle that flipped and somersaulted around the clearing at the heart of the camp. The other cats had to spring out of the way to avoid the screeching whirlwind of fur. As Rusty scratched and struggled, he was aware that he felt no fear, only exhilaration. Through the roaring of the blood in his ears, he could hear that cats around them were wailing with excitement. Then Rusty felt his collar tighten around his neck. Longtail had gripped it between his teeth and was tugging hard. Rusty felt a terrible pressure at his throat. Unable to breathe, he started to panic. He writhed and twisted, but each movement only made the pressure worse. Retching and gulping for air, he summoned up all his strength and tried to pull away from Longtail's grip. And suddenly, with a loud snap, he was free. Longtail tumbled away from him. Rusty scrambled to his paws and looked around. Longtail was crouching 3 tail lengths away and dangling from Longtail's mouth. Rusty saw his collar, mangled and broken. At once, Blue Star leaped down from the high rock and silenced the noisy crowd. With a thunderous caterwaul, Rusty and Longtail remained fixed to the spot, gasping for breath. Clumps of fur hung from their ruffled coats. Rusty could feel a cut stinging above his eye. Longtail's left ear was badly torn, and blood dripped down his lean shoulders onto the dusty ground. They stared at each other. Their hostility not yet spent. Blue Star stepped forward and took the collar from Longtail. She placed it on the ground in front of her and meowed. "The newcomer has lost his 2-leg collar in a battle for his honor. Star Clan has spoken its approval. This cat has been released from the hold of his 2-leg owners and is free to join ThunderClan as an apprentice." Rusty looked at Blue Star and solemnly nodded his acceptance. He stood up and stepped forward into a shaft of sunshine, welcoming the warmth on his sore muscles. The pool of light blazed bright on his orange pelt, making his fur glow. Rusty lifted his head proudly and looked at the cats around him. This time, no cat argued or jeered. He had shown himself to be a worthy opponent in battle. Blue Star approached Rusty and placed the shredded collar on the ground in front of him. She touched his ear gently with her nose. "You look like a brand of fire in this sunlight," she murmured. Her eyes flashed briefly, as if her words had more meaning for her than Rusty knew. "You had fought well." Then she turned to the clan and announced, "From this day forward, until he had earned his warrior name, this apprentice will be called Firepaw, in honor of his flame-colored coat." She stepped back with the other cats and waited silently for his next move. Without hesitating, Rusty turned and kicked dust and grass over his collar as though burying his dirt. Longtail growled and limped out of the clearing towards a fern-shaded corner. The cats split into groups, murmuring to each other silently. "Hey, Firepaw!" Rusty heard Graypaw's friendly voice behind him. Firepaw! A thrill of pride surged through him at the sound of his new name. He turned to greet the apprentice with his new welcoming sniff. "Great fight, Firepaw!" mewed Graypaw. "Especially for a kitty pet. Longtail's a warrior, although he only finished his training 2 moons ago. That scar you left on his ear won't let him forget you in a hurry. You've spoiled his good looks, that's for sure." "Thanks, Graypaw," Firepaw replied. "He put up quite a fight, though." He licked his front paw. And I said that and my cat just started cleaning himself. He licked his front paw and began to wipe clean the deep scratch that stung above his eye. Oh yeah. As he washed, he heard his new name again, echoing among the meows of cats. Firepaw! Hey, Firepaw! Welcome, young Firepaw. Firepaw closed his eyes for a moment and let the voices wash over him. Good name, too, Greypaw mewed approvingly, jolting him awake. Firepaw looked around. Where did Longtail creep off to? I think he was heading toward Spotted Leaf's den. Greypaw tipped his head toward the fern-enclosed corner Longtail had disappeared into. He's our medicine cat. Not bad looking either. Younger and a lot prettier than most. A loud yowl next to the two cats stopped Greypaw mid-speech. They both turned, and Firepaw recognized the powerful gray tabby cat who had sat behind Greypaw earlier. Darkstripe? Mewed Greypaw, dipping his head respectfully. The sleek Tom looked at Firepaw for a moment. Lucky a collar snapped when it did. Longtail is a young warrior, but I can't imagine him being beaten by a kitty pet, he spat. He spat the word kitty pet scornfully, then he turned and stalked off. Now Darkstripe, Greypaw hissed to Firepaw under his breath, is neither young nor pretty. Firepaw was about to agree with his new friend when he was interrupted by a warning yowl from an old gray cat sitting at the edge of the clearing. Smoller smells trouble, Greypaw meowed, immediately alert. Firepaw barely had time to look around before a young cat crashed through the bushes into the camp. He was skinny, and apart from the white tip of his long, thin tail, jet black from head to toe. Greypaw gasped. That's Ravenpaw! Why is he alone? Where's Tigerclaw? Firepaw looked at Ravenpaw, staggering across the floor of the clearing. He was panting heavily, his coat ruffled and dusty. His eyes were wild with fear. Who are Ravenpaw and Tigerclaw? Firepaw whispered to Greypaw, as several other cats raced past him to greet the new arrival. Ravenpaw's an apprentice. Tigerclaw's his mentor, Greypaw explained quickly. Ravenpaw went out with Tigerclaw and Redtail at sunrise on a mission against RiverClan. The lucky furball. Redtail? Firepaw echoed, thoroughly confused by all these names. Blue Star's deputy, hissed Greypaw. But why on earth has Ravenpaw come back alone? He added to himself. He lifted his head to listen as Blue Star stepped forward. Ravenpaw? The she-cat spoke calmly, but a look of worry clouded her blue eyes. Other cats drew back, curling their lips with anxiety. What happened? What has happened? Blue Star jumped onto High Rock and looked down at the trembling cat. Speak, Ravenpaw! Ravenpaw was struggling for breath. His sides heaved fitfully as the dust around him turned red with blood, but he still managed to scramble up onto the high rock and stand beside Blue Star. He turned to the crowd of eager faces that surrounded him and summoned enough breath to declare, Redtail is dead! Dun dun dun. How long has that been going on for? Oh wow, an hour? Dang. Chapter 4. Shocked yowls rose from the clan cats and echoed through the forest. Ravenpaw staggered slightly. His right foreleg glistened wet with blood that flowed from a deep gash in his shoulder. We met 5 River Clan warriors beside the stream, not far from the Sunning Rocks, he went on shakily. Oakheart was among them. Oakheart! Greypaw gasped beside Firepaw.
He's the deputy of River Clan. He's one of the greatest warriors in the forest. Lucky Ravenpaw. I wish it could have been me. I would have really...
Greypaw was silenced by a fierce glance from the old Grey Tom who had first sensed Ravenpaw's return. Firepaw turned his attention back to Ravenpaw.
Redtail warned Oakheart to keep his hunting parties off of ThunderClan territory. He said the next River Clan warrior to be caught in ThunderClan territory would be killed, but Oakheart wouldn't back down. He said his clan had to be fed, whatever we threatened.
Ravenpaw paused to wheeze for breath. His wound was bleeding heavily, and he stood awkwardly to keep the weight off his shoulder.
That's when River Clan gets attacked. It was hard to see what was happening. The fight was vicious. I saw Oakheart had Redtail pinned to the ground, but then Redtail...
Suddenly, Ravenpaw's eyes rolled into the back of his head, and he lurched sideways. Half scrambling, half falling, he slithered off. Hi, Harry. He slithered off the high rock and collapsed at the ground below. A ginger queen bounded toward him, crouched at his side. She licked his cheek briefly and called out, "Spotted Leaf! Spotted Leaf!" Out of the fern-shaded corner trotted the pretty tortoiseshell Firepaw had noticed sitting beside Greypaw earlier. Don't worry about that. She hurried over to Ravenpaw and meowed for the queen to stand back. Then she used her small pink nose to roll the apprentice over so that she could take a good look at the wound. She glanced up and meowed, "It's all right, Golden Flower. His wounds aren't fatal, but I'll need to fetch some cobwebs to stop the bleeding." As Spotted Leaf sprinted back to her den, the hushed silence in the clearing was broken by a mournful howl. All eyes turned to the direction it had come from. A massive dark brown tabby staggered through the gore's tunnel. Between his sharp teeth, the warrior held not prey, but the lifeless body of another cat. Thanks for subbing. He dragged the tattered creature into the center of the clearing. Firepaw craned his neck and glimpsed a flash of bright ginger Firepaw craned his neck and glimpsed a flash of ginger tail hanging limply in the dust. Shock rippled through the clan like a chill breeze. Beside Firepaw, Greypaw dropped into a crouch as grief swept over him.
"Redtail!"
"How did this happen, Tiger Claw?" demanded Blue Star from her position at the high rock. Tiger Claw let the scruff of Redtail's neck fall from his mouth, and he looked steadily at Blue Star. "He died with honor, struck down by Oakheart. I couldn't save him, but I managed to take Oakheart's life while he was still gloating over his victory." Tiger Claw's voice was strong and deep. "Redtail's death was not in vain, for I doubt we'll ever see RiverClan hunters in our territory again." Firepaw glanced at Greypaw. The apprentice's eyes were dark with sadness. After a moment's pause, several cats moved forward to lick Redtail's body. Redtail's bedraggled fur. As they groomed, they purred hushed phrases to the dead warrior. Firepaw whispered into Greypaw's ear, "What are they doing?" Greypaw didn't take his eyes off the dead cat as he replied, "His spirit may have left to join StarClan, but the clan shares tongues with Redtail one last time." Thanks for subbing. "StarClan?" Firepaw echoed. "It's the tribe of heavenly warriors that watches over all the clan cats. You can see them in Silverpelt." Firepaw looked confused, so Greypaw explained, "Silverpelt is that thick brand of
stars you see each night stretching across the sky. Each star is a Star Clan warrior. Redtail will be among them tonight. Firepaw nodded, and Graypaw stepped forward to share tongues with his dead deputy. Blue Star had remained silent while the first cats came to pay their respects to Redtail. Now she leaped down from the high rock and walked slowly towards Redtail's body. The other cats retreated and watched their leader crouch down and share tongues with their old comrade one last time. When she had finished, she raised her head and spoke. Her voice was low and thick with grief, and the clan listened in silence. Redtail was a brave warrior. His loyalty to ThunderClan could never be doubted. I always relied on his judgment for it. It bore witness to the needs of the clan, and he was never swayed by self-interest or pride. How can I read this? He would have made a fine leader. I do have a human form, actually. Heartpelt, spotted leaf. Then she lowered herself onto her belly, her head bowed and her paws stretched neatly before her. And silently she grieved for her lost friend. Several other cats came and laid down beside her, their bowed heads and hunched backs echoing her mournful pose. Firepaw watched. He had not known Redtail, but he couldn't help feeling moved as he witnessed the clan mourn. Graypaw came and stood beside him again. Dustpelt will be sad, he remarked. Or Dustpaw will be sad. Harry, don't knock over my phone. Dustpaw? Redtail's apprentice. That brown striped tabby over there. I wonder who his new mentor will be. Harry. Keep your tail down. Harry, I swear, if you lay on my book, he laid on my book. I guess I can chat until he leaves. If he fit, he sit. Yep. What's your question? I do have a human form, actually. You know? Harry, you're making whoever's listening to this, like, if it was an audiobook, you're making them mad because they can't fall asleep to me talking to you. I would prefer not to show my face. I'm sorry. Oh my god. Also, I'm not in cosplay right now, so it would look weird. You ready to move so I can keep reading?
What's my cat's name? My cat's name is Harry, like Harry Potter. Except he's not very brave. Like, at all. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. If you say it loud enough, you'll always sound tenacious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Don't look directly into my light. It'll hurt your eyes. Oh yeah. Oh, finally deciding to be a lab cat. Oh, cool. Oh yeah, gotcha club. Oh, Harry, you lost my page. Let's see, we were like... Can I continue reading Warriors now, Harry? Do you guys want me to continue reading Warriors? It's the stream's name, so I might as well. Oh yeah, Pokemon card bookmark. Firepaw glanced over at the small Tom who squatted near Redtail's body, staring unseen at the ground. Firepaw looked past him to the clan leader. How long will Blue Star sit with him? He asked. Probably the whole night, replied Graypaw. Thank you. Redtail was her deputy for many, many moons. She won't want to let him go too quickly. He was one of her best warriors. Not as big and powerful as Tiger Claw or Lionheart, but quick and clever. Firepaw looked over at Tiger Claw, admiring the strength that swelled in his powerful muscles and broad head. His massive body showed signs of his warrior's life. Oh, waffle fight. One of his ears was split into a deep V shape, and a thick scar sliced the bridge of his nose. Suddenly, Tiger Claw stood up and stalked over to Ravenpaw. Spotted Leaf was crouching beside Tiger Claw's wounded apprentice, using her teeth and front paws to press wads of cobweb onto his shoulder wound. Firepaw leaned towards Graypaw. What's Spotted Leaf doing? Stopping the bleeding. It looks like a nasty cut. And Ravenpaw seemed really shaking up. He's always been a bit jumpy, but I've never seen him this bad before. Let's go see if he's woken up yet. They made their way over to the grieving cats towards the spot where Ravenpaw lay, and settled themselves at a respectful distance to wait until Tiger Claw had finished speaking. So, Spotted Leaf, Tiger Claw addressed the tortoiseshell she-cat with a confident meow. How is he? Do you think you can save him? I spent a lot of time training him up, and I don't want my efforts to be wasted at the first battle. Spotted Leaf didn't look up from her patient as he replied, Yes, it's a pity. After all your valuable training, he dies in his first battle. In his first fight, eh? Firepaw could hear the teasing purr in her soft mew. Will he live? Tiger Claw demanded. Of course. He just needs rest. Tiger Claw snorted and looked down at the motionless black shape. He jabbed at Ravenpaw with one of his front claws. Come on, then. Get up. Ravenpaw didn't move. Look at the length of that claw, Firepaw hissed. Too right, replied Graypaw with feeling. I know I wouldn't want to get in a fight with him. Not so fast, Tiger Claw. Spotted Leaf placed her paw over Tiger Claw's sharp talon and gently moved it away. This apprentice needs to be kept as still as possible until the cut has healed. I don't want him opening his wound by jumping about trying to please you. Leave him alone. Firepaw found himself holding his breath as he waited for Tiger Claw's reaction. He guessed that few cats dared to give orders to the warrior like that. The big tabby stiffened and seemed about to speak when Spotted Leaf mewed teasingly. Even you know better than to argue with a medicine cat, Tiger Claw. Tiger Claw's eyes flashed at the little tortoiseshell's words. I wouldn't dare argue with you, Spotted Leaf, he purred. He turned to leave and caught the sight of Graypaw and Firepaw. Who's this? He asked Graypaw, towering over them. He's the new apprentice. He smells like a kitty pet, snorted the warrior. I was a house cat, Firepaw mewed boldly, but I'm going to train to be a warrior. Tiger Claw looked at him with a sudden interest. Ah, yes, now I remember. Blue Star mentioned that she had stumbled across some stray kitty pet. So she's actually going to try you out, is she? Firepaw sat up really straight, anxious to impress the distinguished clan warrior. That's right, he meowed respectfully. Tiger Claw eyed him thoughtfully. Then I shall watch your progress with interest. Firepaw puffed his chest proudly as Tiger Claw sulked away. Do you think he liked me? I don't think Tiger Claw likes any apprentices, whispered Graypaw. Just then, Ravenpaw stirred and twitched his ears. Has he gone? He mumbled. Who, Tiger Claw? Replied Graypaw, trotting towards him. Yep, he's gone. Hi there, Firepaw began, about to introduce himself. Go away, both of you, Spotted Leaf protested. How am I meant to help this cat with all of these interruptions? She impatiently flicked her tail at Graypaw and Firepaw. Harry, why are you so... Firepaw realized she was serious, despite the lively glimmer in her warm amber eyes. Come then, Firepaw, mewed Graypaw. I'll show you around. See you later, Ravenpaw. The two cats left Spotted Leaf with Ravenpaw and walked across the clearing. Graypaw looked thoughtful. He was clearly taking his duties as guide very seriously. You know High Rock already, he began, flicking his tail towards the big smooth boulder. To the big smooth rock. Blue Star always addresses the clan from there. Her den's down there. He lifted his nose towards a hollow at the end of the high rock. Her den was carved out many moons ago by an ancient stream. Hanging lichen draped the entrance, sheltered the leader's nest from storm and rain. The warriors sleep over here, Graypaw went on. Firepaw followed him to a large bush a few paces away from the high rock. There was a clear view from here, right down to the gore's entrance into the camp. The branches of the bush hang low, but Firepaw could see sheltered space inside where the warriors made their nests. The senior warriors sleep nearest to the center, where it's the warmest, explained Graypaw. They usually share their fresh kill together over by that clump of nettles. The younger warriors eat nearby. Sometimes they're invited to join the senior warriors for eating, which is a big honor. What about the other clan cats? Firepaw asked, fascinated, but feeling rather overwhelmed by all the traditions and rituals of clan life. Well, the queens share the warrior quarters when they work as warriors, but when they're expecting kids, or nursing them, they stay near the nursery. The elders have their own place on the other side of the clearing. Come on, I'll show you. Firepaw trotted after Graypaw across the clearing and past the shadowy corner where Spotted Leaf had her den. They stopped beside a fallen tree that sheltered a patch of lush grass. 1 second. Oh. Crouched among the soft greenery were 4 elderly cats tucking into a plump young rabbit. Dustpaw and Sandpaw would have brought them that, whispered Graypaw. One of the apprentice duties is to catch fresh kill for the elders. Hello, youngster. Hello, youngster, One of the elders greeted Graypaw.
Hello, Small Ear,
mewed Graypaw, nodding respectfully. This must be our new apprentice, Firepaw, isn't it? Meowed a second Tom. His patchy fur was dark brown, and there were only a stump where his tail should have been. That's right, Firepaw replied, copying Graypaw's polite nod. I'm Half-Tail, purred the brown Tom. Welcome to the clan. Have you two eaten? Meowed Small Ear. Firepaw and Graypaw both shook their heads. Well, there's enough here. Dustpaw and Shamepaw are turned into fine hunters. Do you mind if they shared a mouse? You One Eye? The pale gray queen who lay beside him shook her head. Firepaw noticed one of her eyes was clouded and sightless. What about you, Dappletail? The other elder, a tortoiseshell she-cat with a gray muzzle, meowed in a voice cracked with age. Of course not. Thank you, mewed Graypaw eagerly. He stepped forward and took a large mouse from the pile of prey, then dropped it at Firepaw's feet. You still haven't tasted mouse? He asked. No, Firepaw admitted. He suddenly felt excited by the warm smells that were rising from this piece of fresh kill. His whole body quivered at the thought of sharing his first real food as a clan member. In this case, you could have the first bite. Just save me some. Graypaw dipped his head and stood back to give Firepaw room. Firepaw crouched down and took a large bite from the mouse. It was juicy and tender, and sang with the flavors of the forest. So, what do you think? Asked Graypaw. Fantastic, mumbled Firepaw, his mouth still full. Move over then, mewed Graypaw, stepping forward and bending his neck to take a bite. As the two apprentices shared the mouse, they listened to the elders talk among themselves. How long before Blue Star appoints a new deputy? Asked Small Ear. What'd you say, Small Ear? Mewed One Eye. I think your hearing's become as poor as your eyesight, snapped Small Ear impatiently. I say, how long before Blue Star appoints a new deputy? One Eye ignored Small Ear's irritated reply and spoke instead to the tortoiseshell queen. Dappletail, do you remember the day many moons ago when Blue Star herself was appointed deputy? Dappletail mewed earnestly. Oh yes, it was not long after she lost her kids. She'll not be happy appointing a new deputy, Small Ear observed. Redtail served her long and well, but she still needs to make up her mind quickly. According to clan customs, choice has to be made before sun high and moon high, after the death of the old deputy. At least this time the choice is obvious, yelled Half-Tail. Firepaw raised his head and looked at the clearing. What could Half-Tail mean? To Firepaw, all the warriors looked worthy of becoming deputy. Perhaps he meant Tigerclaw. After all, he had avenged Redtail's death. Tigerclaw was sitting not far off, his ears angled towards the others' conversation. As Firepaw stretched with his tongue to lick the last traces of mouse from his whiskers, Blue Star's voice called from the high rock. Redtail's body still lay there in the clearing below the pale gray in the fading light. A new deputy must be appointed, she meowed. But first, let us give thanks to StarClan for the life of Redtail. Tonight, he sits with his fellow warriors among the stars. Oh, man, McGucket. Oh. Silence fell as all the cats looked up at the sky, which was beginning to darken as evening crept over the forest. And now I shall name ThunderClan's new deputy, Blue Star continued. I say these words before the body of Redtail, so that his spirit may hear and approve of my choice. Firepaw looked at Tigerclaw. He couldn't help notice the hunger in the big warrior's amber eyes as he stared up at High Rock. Lionheart, meowed Blue Star, will be the new deputy of ThunderClan. Firepaw was curious to see Tigerclaw's reaction, but the dark warrior's face revealed nothing as he moved to congratulate Lionheart with a nudge so hearty that it almost pushed the golden tabby off balance. Why didn't he make Tigerclaw deputy? Firepaw wondered,
whispered the Grey Paw. Probably because Lionheart has been a warrior longer. He also has a lot more experience, Grey Paw murmured back, still looking up at Blue Star. Blue Star spoke again. Redtail was also a mentor to a young Dustpaw. Since there must be no delay in the training of our apprentices, I shall appoint Dustpaw's new mentor immediately. Darkstripe, you are ready for your first apprentice, so you will continue Dustpaw's training. You had a fine mentorship in Tigerclaw, and I expect you to pass on some of the excellent skills you were taught. The tabby warrior swelled with pride as he showed his acceptance with a solemn nod. He strode over to Dustpaw, bent his head, and rather awkwardly touched noses with the new apprentice. Dustpaw flicked his tail respectfully, but his eyes were still dull with grief from losing his mentor. Blue Star raised her voice. I shall keep vigil with Redtail's body tonight, before we bury him at sunrise. She jumped down from the high rock and walked to lie beside Redtail's body once more. Many of the other cats joined her, Dustpaw and Dustpaw and Small Ear among them. Should we sit with them too? Firepaw suggested. He had to admit the idea didn't appeal to him much. It had been a busy day, and he was beginning to feel tired. All he wanted to do was find somewhere warm and dry to curl up and sleep. Grey Paw shook his head. No, only those who are close to Redtail will share his final night. I'll show you where we sleep. The apprentice den is over here. Firepaw followed Grey Paw to a thick bush of ferns that lay behind a mossy tree stump. All the apprentices share their fresh kill by this stump, Grey Paw told him. How many apprentices are there? Firepaw asked. Not as many as usual. Just me, you, Ravenpaw, Dustpaw, and Sandpaw. As Grey Paw and Firepaw settled themselves beside the tree stump, a young she-cat crawled out from beneath the ferns. Her coat was ginger like Firepaw's, but much paler, with barely visible stripes of darker fur. So, here comes the new apprentice, she meowed, narrowing her eyes. Hello, Firepaw mewed. The young cat sniffed rudely. He smells like a kitty pet. Don't tell me I'm going to have to share my nest with that revolting stench. Firepaw felt rather taken aback. Since his fight with Longtail, all cats had been quite friendly. Maybe they had just been distracted by Ravenpaw's news, he thought. You'll have to excuse Sandpaw, apologized Grey Paw. I think she must have a furball stuck somewhere. She's not usually this bad-tempered. Pah! Spat Sandpaw crossly. Hold your tongue, youngsters. Hold your tongue, youngsters. White Storm's mew appeared behind the apprentices. Sandpaw, as my apprentice, I expect you to be a little more welcoming to this newcomer. Sandpaw held up her head and looked defiant. I'm sorry, White Storm, she purred, not sounding sorry at all. I just didn't expect to be training with a kitty pet, that's all. I'm sure you'll get used to it, Sandpaw, meowed White Storm calmly. Now it's getting late, and training starts early tomorrow. You three should get some sleep. He gave Sandpaw a stern look, and then she nodded obediently as he walked off. She spun around and vanished into the clump of ferns. Sniffing once more, she brushed past Firepaw. With a flick of his tail, Grey Paw invited Firepaw to follow him and led the way after Sandpaw inside the sleeping area. The ground was lined with soft moss, and the pale moonlight turned everything a delicate shade of green. The air was fragrant with fern scent and warmer than outside. Where do I sleep? Firepaw asked. Anywhere, just as long as it's not near me, snarled Sandpaw, who was prodding some moss with her paw. Grey Paw and Firepaw exchanged glances, but said nothing. Firepaw raked together a pile of moss with his claws. When he had gathered his bed into a cozy nest, he circled until it was comfortable and settled down. His whole body felt drowsy with contentment. This was his home now. He was a member of ThunderClan. Ugh.
second. Oh, I'm so sorry, Harry. Harry, get off my mask. Ugh. Remember, kids, when making a mask out of cardboard, remember to line the inside. What'd I do? Nice to meet you too. Oh my god, this has been going on for an hour and a half. Oh, about that. My top hat. I forgot to make the top hat. You ate my top hat? I'm very disappointed. You can't just eat someone's top hat. How about this? We make a deal. You give me my top hat. And I'll take your soul. You know? The usual. Just need to get revenge on a certain pine twin. You know? Oh. Still need revenge on a pine twin. You know? Maybe. I was thinking Stanley. But, you know. Oh, you'll make me one. Oh, thank you. I should have done this in full cosplay. See this? See this? See this? Wow. Wow. What you doing, Harry? Not the top hat for my human Bill cosplay, right? 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 First you throw waffles at each other. Now you're throwing ramen at each other. Oh no, pancakes. It's great. It's fantastic. You want out, Hair Boo? I'm gonna make cat out of my room. Be right back. Bill, can you hear me? I guess. Dorito Army, oh yeah. Oh yeah, pride flags. What time is it? 9:32. Sweet. Don't spray my eye. Do you know how long it takes to regenerate my eye? It takes a while. You're eating drywall? Drywall? Drywall. Oh. When I told you guys to stay weird, I didn't mean it like that. Ugh. Oh, I died. What the frick, shooting star? Ugh. Oh, dodges. Hee hee.
Ugh.
Chat. Should I make a video? Bill Cypher Jinko posing? Heather? Is that a Heather's reference? Oh no. Heather, is that a Heather's reference? Like Heather's, like the musical? Like, I'm a theater kid. Ah, face reveal. Whoops. Yeah, I know, I saw that. Heather, 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 and someone, Heather, 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 and Veronica, Veronica, Veronica. Oh, Ford? Ford. Ford. He knows, he just won't accept it. Oh. Chat, should I continue reading? Hi, Heather. Should I continue reading, or should I just, like... Ugh. I do. I'm Stan and I was wrong. I'm singing the Stan Wrong song. Now here's my remorseful dance. Do the kick.
Oh.
I have an old man McGuckey impression, and it sounds pretty good, you know? My Seuss impression is okay. I don't know how good it would sound on stream, though. Are you talking to me? Yeah, okay. What's up? Stana Wars Wide. I do play Roblox. In fact, I spent all of today on Roblox because I have no life. Also because my felt for masks haven't come in yet. I have nothing to do and I didn't feel like drawing, so you know? Here's a mask making tip. Whenever you're ripping foam out of the inside of a mask because you're not happy with it, make sure you get all of it. Because if you don't, and it's around the part where your nose-ish is, it's terrible. Am I live often? No. I haven't been live for a while. Probably because of the fact that YouTube always gets mad whenever I go live, so. I'm gonna draw you guys a little picture. Oh, you guys like My Chemical Romance t-shirt? Oh, now you're eating raw wood. That's great. I can't imagine the benefits that raw wood has on your health. You know? Oh, oops. Oh, I said, shit. Mabel, you dodo. Quote, chat. Guys, get a horribly drawn picture of... No, I'm gonna draw a better picture of Bill. You go. Jump scare. Straight launching by a little dog?